is to do with the whole concept of spirit. So it is very difficult to guess it from reading Torah on its face value, because then it becomes a secret, unbeknown, and very difficult actually to open it. So let's start and just look, if you can open your book Exodus, which is name, chapter 21 in King James Bible, verse 1. Now these are the judgments which thou shalt set before them. And it starts, if thou buy a Hebrew servant, 6 years he shall serve, and in the 7th he shall go out free for nothing. Okay. So all this chapter and portion of Torah is read like sort of law, moral issue to do between servant and one can say punity that is regarding hurting life, taking life, how to treat a slave, how to treat others' property. This is how it is read on the surface. But I would like us to look at first how actually Zohar is looking at it. So what we saw, that when we read the portion of Yitro, it was the revelation and the speech of the Ten Commandments. We did not speak about the spiritual part of the Ten Commandments, but it is the only time in history that there is a revelation to a vessel which is a group of spirit, when their condition was that they were at least united by the fact of knowing the fault of their attitude towards each other. So at least knowing that this is, one can say, a barrier between them and the Lord and the Lord King, because they ask to see their King, not to see the Creator. This request to see my King means to see that which I'm meant to serve, because the Creator is a further concept which does not automatically oblige me as if I name someone as my king. If I name something, higher power, as my king, there is an obligation and responsibility of one can say, not only to serve the same purpose, but a certain loyalty, which is to do with the loyalty to oneself. So this is, in a way, the demand of those spirits who came to the realization of their name, which what it means to be real, what it means to be spiritually real. So we can read some of the commandments that, as I told you before, that each one of them is divided into 3 aspects of the relationship between human, or the createe, and the creator. It's the one which is one to oneself, one to another, and one to a higher power, or to the Creator, or to whatever name you attain or your vessel is ready to attain. Okay. So even when we read "do not murder," it speaks first about do not murder the point in your heart, meaning do not murder your possibility of life. Therefore, what derives from it is the fact that you will not take other life, because each life has as a possibility of the presence of the spirit, meaning this part, this godly part in it. So if you recognize it in yourself, you're not able to take it from another, and therefore this is the way you actually state your intention and your sentiment to the higher, to the giver of life. Okay? So it's as well to do with theft. First, do not thieve from yourself. It means that do not take or do not steal the opportunity of your spirituality. So it is read from root to branch. But then the whole setup is clearly without boundaries. There is an appearance to a group in which they commit themselves to be a testimonial life, or a live testimonial to not to the presence of the higher, to in all its expressions. But here we come to laws which seem to be so practical, so bound to corporate life, so bound to earth. So it's very difficult to see in it, while reading it, what it has to do with spiritual life. So we can say that Yitro is the boundless and the limitless opportunity. But how it can express itself need to go through a vessel, through a consciousness which has limits. So how does it read from, and these are the judgments. First we have to see that if we speak about judgment, the source or the root of judgment is always Binah, because she's restricting from four aspect of direct line. She's restricting the expansion of the higher, the expansion of Keter, to a condition. And the condition is saying it can expand as long as I remember and feel the giver of life, the giver of wisdom, which actually Malchut is able to execute. But what we see that when we speak about judgment, we speak about restriction. So actually the whole creation is resting upon a restriction. The first restriction is Tzimtzum Aleph and its screen, because it is in a way opposite to the nature of Keter, or the thought of creation to bestow. So if you have a restricted point to this wishing to give, so it seems that we're starting, it's called judgment. It means it is the limit, it is the border, the line that restrict or give the condition of how the light can expand. So first we need to see that this is what we're reading here. Okay? We're reading about the power of restriction, how actually it's going to express itself in the life of humans. So why it starts with slaves? Because the first condition of a spirit is being a slave. The way that the spirit is expanding, or one can say in painting it, is she's going down, and when she's going down into the reality of corporal life, she's being enslaved. So already we see that this is the judgment, that you have to not to teach them, and not to repeat to them, but you shall set before them, meaning that in Hebrew it's set before their face. It means that it should be there all the time till they will get or attain the meaning of it, so it will illumine or enlighten their face. They'll have a face, they'll get a face. Okay? So the first is the condition of how the spirit finds itself. Yeah? It finds itself enslaved by the corporal or the will to receive to oneself. And this is why it starts, if thou buy an Hebrew servant. Okay. And then we see the whole structure of creation of the time of enslavement and the time of getting liberated. So we know that in the creation, the restriction of the vessels and the way they were created are called the sixth day, or the six ways of creating the ecology, the vessels, the relationship, the light, the screens, which are heaven and earth, all the degrees of restriction in order for the spirit to be able on the seventh day, which is Sabbath, to stop and to get the reward of her toil. Yeah. This is how the Book of Name is giving us the deep understanding of the restriction of as well the opportunity of what we call 6,000 years. Yeah? And then everything is being ruined in terms of the corporal ecology, the distinction between the world, and all becomes one day, meaning a Sabbath. Okay? So this is what it is said here. If thou buy an Hebrew servant, meaning Hebrew servant is already a consciousness, and that has in it the ability to discern and to be awakened to the fact that it is need to serve something that need to pass through. It means Hebrew. It's a light that should pass. It should serve in a way that the light should pass through it. So 6 years, as I explain now, this is the period of emanating, working, toiling for its tikkun, to be able to join. So 6 years he shall serve, and in the seventh, it means we cannot hold him more than that. He shall go out free for nothing. Free for nothing, it means that it is the seventh day is given to him as as a present. It's not in relation to the exact amount of his servitude. It's to do with a total different reality. He's entering, but he's entering without shame because he did what he needed to do. So we would like to see how can I read it like this. It's because of the way Zohar is opening this Mishpatim, which is, one can say, law or juridic rules, one can say, or I would say those are the limitation. So Rabbi Shimon is opening with the words, and these are the judgment which you shall set before him or before them. So the translation of it is, these are the rules concerning transmigration, namely the judgment of the soul or the spirit that transmigrate or incarnate, as he translated it, again in this world, to be sentenced, each according to its punishable acts. Okay? To his, what we need to look at what it means, punishable, or what is punishment as a whole. It's actually all that can move, the power that can move us from restriction to, one can say, to a more liberated position of attainment, consciousness, and as well responsibility. So it's not sort of, one can say, a due of you have not done something, but in a way it's to do with an encouragement and a chance that is given to each spirit to complete its mission. Okay? But for her, coming again feels like enslavement. So she feels it as a punishment. But the punishment is not the fact that she was given another try, another chance, or another opportunity. But punishment for her is a sentiment of being apart or far away from her source, or being apart from the higher. That this is what is painful. Okay? So now it seems that the whole portion of this Torah is going to be read according to that, according to the state of the spirit. So I'd like to just stop for a minute here and to see if there are so far questions. And then we will go to basically the main article of the Zohar of this, which is called the article of the grandfather. Yeah, the article of one can say of the old sage. But he is called grandfather in Aramaic. In Hebrew, they translated it into old. But in Hebrew, the word zaken, old, is not what we perceive. It's that person who acquired wisdom. This is why it turns white, because white is the color or the hue of wisdom. So basically, when a person turns white, not in our world, not in a corporal world, but in, let's say, in a spiritual world, it means that he is able to engage and to pass through him wisdom, the white light. Okay? So you can see how branch can be so far away, from its true meaning, it means that our existence is so far away from where it should be. So we will go into at least the beginning of the word, or of the article of this, or what he calls the Saba, or the grandfather. And we need to see how it starts. It's the article that is called the Old Sage. In the Saba, the grandfather, the white man, Gandalf after he turned from gray to white. Okay, so is appearing in, and the meeting point is very important. So we know there is a formula in all, let's say, in many legends, that the first meeting with a wise, or with the old sage, with a white sage, is first the ego is meeting him and degrading him, and not able to grasp it's the huge, the fine wisdom and attainment of that presence in front of them. But there is something before that which is not inside the formula, which is two friends of the group or the community of the Zohar is finding themselves in a very particular state. And this is how it starts. Rabbi Chia, and now at least you heard enough about Rabbi Chia to know that he's is usually epitomizing the need to go into places that no one has dared before, not himself even. So there is not a need in this structure of spirit of Rabbi Chia, which is to do with the sound of life, to explore, to get to know, to reform. It's a very strong voice that always walks among the community of the Zohar and brings them usually to points of surprise revelations. So he's going with his companion, Rabbi Yossi, or Rabbi Yossi, actually. Rabbi Yossi is different. So Rabbi Yossi. So Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Yossi met one night in a tower of Tzor, it's called, Tyr, and lodged there. Yeah. They rejoiced in each other. And Rabbi Yossi said, how glad I am to have been the face, to have seen the face of Shekhinah. For the whole way I was annoyed by a certain old merchant who questioned me throughout the voyage. Okay. So first we have to understand where they find themselves. First, one thing we can clearly understand, that Rabbi Yossi went alone and he met Rabbi Chia in a specific place, that the meeting point for him was not like, but actually when he saw Rabbi Chia, he saw in him the face of Shekhinah. Meaning this is the relationship there. Meaning it's the presence that saves you. It's the companion of your true journey. Are they aware where they are? First, we have to see that they are together. Yeah. First, they met. what brought them together to this meeting point? There's no two spirits who are coming together unless they were destined to meet. So they were destined to meet at night. Okay. At night, it means with a feeling of something which is concealed, in concealment. Concealment can happen in two ways. First, that we are not aware that there is a concealment, and we're walking as though we saw. But night is an being aware. It's a state of consciousness of being aware that we are facing concealment. And not only that we're facing concealment, we're facing concealment in the tower of Tzor, meaning of Klippa. We can identify that it is the other side, that something is closing our consciousness, our heart. We are glad that we are not alone in that, but we are realizing that actually when we walk at the time of this portion of Torah, something is very heavy. Something puts a lid on us that we're not able to see, not able to feel, but we recognize it. Basically, this is the way all people or all humanity reads this portion of Torah, of judgment. They might feel, if you start to feel that it's not talking about what punity or what penalty you should have while hurting or stealing someone else's tool of work or stock. They feel the weight of the screen that they cannot pass. It's so how it expresses itself with Rabbi Yossi saying that there's someone who has been with him on the way that annoyed him deeply. Why he annoyed him deeply? Because he spoke to him in riddles. And the riddles were not in the familiar language of Torah. It was the language of creation. It was in the language that created Torah, the language of Torah. It means it is the consciousness of all spirit. So this is what annoyed Rabbi Yossi. Okay. He asked me, he's speaking about this merchant that annoyed him with question. He asked me, who is the serpent that soared in the air and goes on in separation, so that in the meantime there is rest. Okay? There is rest to a certain ant. Where's the ant? There's a rest to a certain ant that lies in its teeth, in between its teeth. It's translated here jaws, but the Zohar is saying teeth. Okay. So when this serpent is soaring in the air and it's separate. So he's speaking about a snake and he's speaking about this other side, this other power, the tempting power, the power of the will to receive in its all glory, one can say, and it's almighty. When he's almighty, this is actually a description of Rabbi Chaya and Rabbi Yosef met one night in the tower of Tzor. You understand? It's actually, he's describing to him his state. But Rabbi Yossi is not understanding because it's in different language. He's not telling him that every time Tzor is getting strengthened and is attaining glory, it means that this is the rune of Jerusalem, which is the language of Torah, which means that every time our awe and fear of losing our grip on our spiritual journey appears, it means that something else is getting the light or managed to steal the light, which is our ego or our will to receive to oneself and the reality of it. But when he's doing this, he's sort of towering and going in his separate way. There is a rest to this ant in between his teeth. It starts connected and ends up divided. And what is an eagle? That is another question that he's asking. What is an eagle that nests in a tree that does not exist? Its stolen young are not creatures because they were created where they were not created. When they go up, they go down. And when they go down, they go up. Two that are one and one that are three. And this is the most important. We can explain all those riddles. But the point is the state of Rabbi Chia and Rabbi Yossi hearing those riddles, and here is their description. What is a beautiful eyeless maiden? What is a beautiful eyeless maiden whose body is hidden yet revealed, who goes out during the morning and covers herself during the day and adorns herself with non-existent adornment? All this question he asks me all the time, says Rabbi Yossi, and I don't know how to think about it. But as I said, Rabbi Chia, which is the one who is trying to see an opportunity in everything that is coming to meet him, is saying to him, well, maybe to what is seen to us empty, we will find something very, very important inside it. And of course, they are calling him as though they are the sage and he's the low one, just to bring him into their assessment. They called for him, and he came before them. He said to them, now 2 or 3, because after joining them, there are 3. And where there are 3, there are 3 lines. And when there are 3 lines, it means that there is a screen. And when there is a screen and there are 3 lines, it means there is a partnership of judgment and mercy. When there are 3 lines, there is Torah. And where there are 3 lines, there is revelation. So if Rabbi Yossi is saying, no, there is nothing to receive there, and Rabbi Chia is saying, maybe there is something, being left and right, the sage, the white sage, is joining them, and something can happen. And now something can happen. Rabbi Yossi said, did I not tell you that his words are senseless and empty? He sat before them. And then actually a whole set of revelation concerning. He said to them, gentlemen, I've become a merchant, but a while ago. At first, I was not a merchant, but I had a young child who I placed in school and wanted him to study Torah. Okay. First, one should stay for 1 minute on the word merchant. Why he became? I have become a merchant because there is a responsibility in me, or a duty. I became so, meaning I'm dealing with something, which is a merchant. In Hebrew, merchant is not only dealing with something, but is going around something. But going around something in terms of duty is what is called the round light of creation. Means that the white sage is now his duty to his son, meaning to all his understanding and revelation and to all spirit, is to represent the round, limitless light, how it can enter the limit of the spirit, and how through it the enslaved or limited spirit can go back into the revelation or the source, which is limitless. This is basically what he's saying to them, confiding in them, that I have become a merchant, but a while ago. At first, I was not a merchant, but I had a young child whom I placed in school and wanted him to study Torah. So now there is the most important connection first that we need to maybe to grasp is the tight relationship between spirit, Torah, and the higher. Meaning that through the understanding of Torah, one can be a merchant, meaning to deal with light and vessels. It means that in order for spirit to liberate itself, she needs to come into contact with Torah. Meaning, what is Torah? It's the power vested in Torah to act. Meaning, Torah itself is an act of light that allow all spirit to be liberated from their slavery or captivity, and to be able to be first conscious of the duty, conscious of the responsibility, and with that to bring them back into the destiny, into the place while they're fulfilling their responsibilities. Okay. So this is what he's saying to them. So I wanted him to know Torah, therefore I became a merchant so I could support him. So through what? The white wizard is actually supporting the spirit in front of him through Torah. He's a merchant of the act of light, a revealer. When I found one of the sages traveling, I lead my donkey after him. I lead my donkeys always to do with meta. In Hebrew, this is the word. Donkey is spelled like meta. So I take my corporeal existence, which is meta, and I walk after him. Today, I've thought I would hear new exposition of the Torah, but I have heard nothing. And then Rabbi Yossi is saying, in all your words, I wondered about one only. Either you spoke in jest, or these words are worthless. The old man asked, What is that? Rabbi Yossi said, I was wondering about this beautiful eyeless maiden. I would just, because we are sort of, and in the end of time, there is a whole, it's 100 pages of the revelation of the white sage, or the grandfather. But it is very important to remember first the beginning. I hope that in the gathering we will be able to go deeper into this study, because I think it's about time to go deeper into this. But first we need to get to the point of need. Okay? And this is what is described: to see, to realize that our spirit is enslaved by our will to receive, by our ego, by our corporeal existence, that we actually need and cannot free it. And then something appears like the Zohar to help us. And it speaks not in what we would expect. Yeah? It's a way, it's an eyeless or blind maiden that is to do with our consciousness, one can say, of our spirit in relation to Torah, where she hides and where she appears, and what caused her to hide or to appear. And the beginning of the speech or the teaching of the grandfather of the judgment starts in verse 21. The old man wrapped himself and spoke. And if a priest's daughter be married to a stranger, she may not eat of an offering of the holy things. This verse is followed by another. But if a priest's daughter be widowed or divorced and have no child, and has returned to her father's house, as in her youth, she shall eat of her father's bread, but no stranger shall eat of it. These verses may be understood literally, yet the words of the Torah are undisclosed, as these are secrets in each and every matter, because one should be very much aware that in each word of Torah there is many wisdom, or the wisdom is hidden in each and every subject in Torah, and in each and actually in every word. Yes. But now he's saying, verse 23, if we know that, and we know how blind we are, you remember the blind maiden, yeah. Because we need to have a key, we need to have a screen, we need to have an intention to be able to open it together. So this is why when we are three, we can, when we're a group. Okay. So how should we read it? When we read the daughter of a priest, now we should say a priest's daughter is supernal neshama, is the highest neshama, the daughter of the patriarch, of the father Abraham, the first of convert, who is chesed. He attracts this neshama, this spirit, from a supernal place. So when we speak about a daughter of a priest, or when we speak about a slave, female or male, we're speaking about a spirit that comes from a very, very high place. And all the way it has been captured here, and all the way that it can free itself and others. So the whole article of the white grandfather is going to deal with this. So it is a closure of the responsibility that this portion of Torah is calling us to take upon our spirit. And how to do it.